Thank you guys for the respect. I appreciate it. So yeah, I've been in the industry for, I believe, 6 to 7 years already, and I've been also through the where I use jQuery or AngularJS and all the other frameworks that you guys may know already. And then I got into the point where I got introduced to Qwik. So, question to all of you out there. Does anybody here recognize this? If you do, please raise your hands. All right, good. So I see some people use Gmail. That's great. So let's have a look for a second at their performance. It's not so great, right? Ideally, where we want to be at is actually here, right? So this is actually Lighthouse, by the way, tool from your Chrome, your DevTools. So, right, who am I? I'm a tech lead at NN. I'm a software engineer working in different companies, but yeah, now I'm in NN. Sorry, I'm a bit off today. But I'm also a content creator. So danielfrey.me, you can find my podcast, and I'm also doing some writings, and I love meeting and collaborating with people. So although those are not easy times, I'm still friendly and happy to talk to you if you have any questions, and you can find me on Twitter. So what is the problem? The problem is JavaScript. So let's stop writing JavaScript. No, that's not about it. But when you load Gmail and you open your network tab, you're going to get a lot of files, all of these things. And I have no idea what they do, but they're just load up. And that's a big problem because it takes time to load those stuff, right? You are going to Gmail, you want to read your emails, what do you get? You get this loading animation. Why do you get that? Because of all this shit that is being loaded up. So you just want to go ahead and read your emails. You don't really want to interact with anything yet, right? You don't want to now compose an email or search for anything. All you want to do is just view a list. And I want to talk a little bit about Google. So there is a website called Think with Google. They did interesting research. By the way, they have all kinds of researchers there. One of them is that people will get off your website 32% of the time out if it takes longer than 1 to 3 seconds. So basically, if your page is slow, they're likely not going to use it. So it's not that bad for Gmail, because Gmail, they're not selling you anything, really, just using it. But if you're an e-commerce website like Amazon or just about any e-commerce website out there, this is really crucial. And this speed time is actually then evaluates in money that you lose if people are not being on your website. And so, we hate loading times, right? I think we came from long in the browser history, right? We had websites which looked ugly and then became really nice because of JavaScript, and then now we have this loading time. And so if we want to have speed, we need to write less JavaScript, but in order to have nice interactivity and beautiful pages and do all those cool stuff that we have now, we need more. So this kind of counterintuitive. And one more thing about Google is that you see this search input, right? They understand really well, basically, that people will leave your website if you're not fast. But did you try to access google.com from any place in the world? And did you notice how fast it is? Now, you may think it's just an input with a logo, but really it's not. When you go to this input and you type, it's actually kind of trying to understand you, what is your intention. So it's trying to autocomplete your words. It's also, if you're searching a person that's popular in Wikipedia, for example, it's going to show you a suggestion. If there is some kind of event at your country, it's going to show you some kind of, games or anything. So it is performant. Now, this is, by the way, Amazon, right? Back then, used to look like this. And now it looks like this. So we have been through a really major improvement in the recent years. So, what is Qwik and why is it unique? First of all, Qwik is a framework. Just like we have Next, Nux, and Remix, it does things on the server side, although it does it in a different way, and we're just going to see it in a bit. So, by the way, yesterday I went and created a project in Next.js, and when I ran the build, I already got 84 kilobytes of JavaScript. So that's quite already a lot. And then imagine you're still going to add your app logic to it. it's going to grow and more. And luckily, if not, you're going to end up around 300 kilobytes of JavaScript that is just downloaded already to the user when you load your page right away. So with this comes this kind of, I guess, graph or however you want to see it. So basically, the more JavaScript we're going to add, time to interactive, the more our app sizes are going to grow. And there comes the point which we're talking about hydration. Because hydration is basically the thing that loads up React in this case, but then really just any other framework, to your browser. So whenever you load a page, it hydrates. That's the methodology that React is using. And then the more your JavaScript app size is going to grow, the more time it's going to take to load that page. And this is just how it works. And with Qwik, which they use resumability, it's not affected. So they don't really care how much cool stuff you have on your page. It's going to just stay consistently fast. We're just going to see it in a second. So how does it solve it, right? So let's have a look at a small demo. You can just see this is from the Qwik playground. I have this app with a store. And I want you to pay attention here to this console. What happens whenever I click on this count? So I'm going to click, and then what is this? JavaScript on the network tab being downloaded, or whatever is happening there. So let's have a look at the code quickly. So how many of you are using React or familiar with React? Please raise your hand. All right, so we're good. So it looks really familiar, right? You just have a component with some hook with uStore and on-click for a button, and then you get the value. Right, but the thing here that is different is this $sign. And what does it do? It tells Qwik, listen, I have this component and I have this function, lazy load it, whenever I need it. We're going to understand what it means soon also. So let's break it down. We have a server. It gets us this static HTML with count 0, and then you get the Qwik loader in your first initial page load. The Qwik loader, by the way, is really 1 kilobyte. So it's super small and super fast. So we get that right away. And then Qwik does something interesting in the HTML. What it does, it serializes the information for us. So if we just skim fast and we look at this button, it has something on the on-click, which tells us to access some kind of function in position 0. So it really just divided our code for us, split it for us because of the $signs that we saw earlier into different chunks without us doing really nothing. We just put $signs, and then Qwik knows, hey, listen, put this in a separate file and serialize it to the HTML. And then we click on the button, and what do we get? We get the JavaScript that we needed in order to increase the count. And that's how it looks like in the network tab. Basically, it really took the bare minimum that I needed to increase this count. And really, this works for everything that you see with the $sign. That's the methodology. Now, you may think, what happens when I click on this click button a lot of times? That is going to keep on downloading this JavaScript for me? The answer is no. It's just there, cached, and we just do it once. Right. So obviously, once we click, like we saw, we have this count growing and growing, and the application is interactive. So this is what we call resumability, is that we load whatever code you need at the time that you need it. And we don't do it right away, what you do in hydration. It loads up the whole application for you before you need it, just like we spoke about the Gmail. So let me show you something on VS Code, or before VS Code, actually, I have an example. So I want to talk with you for a second about how does the different approaches currently in the web. So we have Angular, React, Solid, Svelte, whatever framework out there. So what does it do? It has some kind of HTML sent from the server, right? The browser downloads the application, JavaScript, and then the browser executes your application. And right, what does it do? It hydrates. That's the process of hydration, right? This is what I meant when I said hydration, is that everything is just being hydrated and now available to interact with. So, the expert will come to you and say, hey, listen, you can just do lazy loading. But there's a problem with that because the browser downloads the application, the JavaScript for the application, it executes it, but there's a big but here. We are basically loading this whole thing because we need to see it, right? We want to interact with it. So it cannot be really lazy loaded if you need to see it. That's just how it works with those frameworks. So what does it do? It requests the lazy loaded component that you defined in your code, but then still hydrates the whole thing. So sure, you can achieve with some things that you don't see on the page lazy load, like for example, a model that you don't need right away. That can be lazy loaded. But really, for the most part, it doesn't really work well. And routes, for example, routes are already lazy loaded because when you're in a specific route and you don't need that code, fine, it's not there anymore. But really, we get still the problem on the page itself with all the components trees. Now, some of you might be familiar with Astro. Astro invented kind of the way of thinking about each of your components as islands. So what happens, for example, here, let's say this is an e-commerce website and you have a store here, for example, on this button. And when you click on it, it's going to add it to your cart. So if I do that, it wakes up the whole island. But then still, it's basically rendering everything in that island, right? So if I were to trigger this button, and this needs to increase the card that I told you before, it's going to basically go and then wake up this part, and then it's going to wake up the whole island there. And that's not kind of what we wanted, right? We just wanted one button, one cart, and both of them to work with each other, but not the entire thing to hydrate now. Right? So let's look at Qwik. What Qwik says, whatever you need will be ran. So if I go here and I click on it, just like the example we spoke about, it says, hey, you need this and this work together? Fine, I'm going to load it for you. And basically so on and so forth until all your stuff that requires some kind of JavaScript are being downloaded for you. So this is how Qwik works. Another interesting thing is that you can do this. So let's say we have this content in this page. This is just static. There is no JavaScript there. And I'm going to open my network tab, actually, and I'm going to filter it by JavaScript. And so let's say there's something happening when I'm going to scroll. So if you notice, I scroll to this view. In this view, I need this clock, and this is JavaScript. So what did the framework did for me is that whenever you went to this view, it just downloaded it for me. And I didn't really have to do anything. Behind the scenes, the code that is there is just a div style with a height of, 400. And then the space there, Qwik knew automatically to know that there's no JavaScript, so it's fine. And only when you go down there and we see in the component after that's where we need to download it. So that's another thing that with other frameworks, you probably have to take a lot of time to do. And then the cherry on top. We're using React in most of our projects. Maybe some Vue, but it doesn't matter. But I use React, and I was thinking, okay, if I want to introduce this in my company, what am I going to have to do? I'm going to do some kind of POC. Do I have to now take all my components and make them Qwik, or how does that look like? So I took a UI component library called MUI, maybe some of you are familiar with, and I tried to see, does it work with Qwik? And actually does, and you can still get a lot of benefits. So first off, let me try to open my VS Code. And show you how the code looks like. Make it a bit bigger. So I have this MUI button, and I have this slider, and basically they're all being imported from this MUI material, right? And then I'm taking the button, and I'm just passing it through Qwikify, which is basically a function imported from Qwik React. That's what it does. It just knows to handle your React components in a quickie way. So all the lazy loading and all the stuff that you would expect from Qwik to do, it does it for you automatically. All you have to do is just wrap your components like this. You can pass props, you can use the event listeners, just really everything that you want. And to prove you that it works, let me go back to the browser and just show you the table. It works, cool. I can click on it. So that's just the typical MUI thing. And then we also have this slider that's coming from MUI. And the slider is, it just updates the value. When I click on it, there's something event happening. But really what's interesting that is happening is in the network tab, because that is just downloading everything on the go when I need it. So if I just refresh this, I'm getting some, of course, we need React DOM to have this working out for us. But if I click on the show table, then we get really the values that we need for that. So obviously, you're not going to get all the performance gains, but you're still there, right? It's still way better than what we currently have. So back to the presentation. Don't get hydrated. Drink some Qwik. That's the motto. So now that we have some time left, I would like to take some questions from the audience, because obviously smart people, smart questions. So anybody wants to ask something? Yes.
So,
your name, please. Your name.
my name is Oliver.
Oliver.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So you told us that every time you click a button, for example, Qwik loads like a JavaScript file, right?
Yeah.
But doesn't it reduce any delay? For example, when you click, you have to wait for the network.
So no, actually, it does work pretty fast, because the way Qwik divided your files is very small, mini chunks, right? It's just maybe less than a kilobyte. So generally speaking, you can probably solve it by working on some CDN or just spinning up some kind of system where it's going to load up things pretty fast. So that doesn't really affect your load time. You can come up with different solutions for those kind of problems, because I mean it's a fair point. But if you think about it today, we have a really big JavaScript files downloaded as you go to Gmail, for example. Does that affect our load time? Yes, it does, because we see this animation. But will you notice it as a user? For example, if you have the page HTML right away, interactive, you click on a button, you expect something to happen, it happens pretty quick because it's really small files. So I think the performance gains that you get here is not that major if you compare it to really what we have now today, that you just have to wait for everything to kind of speed up and work. So obviously there is pros and cons, but so far, if you go to the builder.io website and you try to interact with just anything, it's just really happening instantly. So I haven't seen any, let's say, performance loss or load time that is being affected here. Because at the end of the day, you still get HTML, you still get things interactive. So yeah. Yes.
Hi.
Hey.
My name is Martin.
Nice to meet you.
Are you using it at your company, Nationale Nederlanden?
So I joined Nationale Nederlanden 3 weeks ago.
Oh, okay.
Maybe not yet, but at some point.
Not quick.
No. We need to create a POC for it. But yeah.
Any companies that you know of in the Netherlands that are using it?
In the Netherlands, no, I don't know. But I do know that there's basically a lot of startups that are starting now, like greenfield projects, are trying to interact with it. If you go, I think the greatest example is the builder.io, basically the creators of Qwik. And there they do really cool stuff with drag and drop, CMS stuff, and there's really complex stuff that they're doing there, and you can really see how basically it works, right? You can see how fast it is interactivity-wise and so on and so forth. So this framework is existing, I think 3 or 4 years ago. The creator of this framework came like in some JS Nation conference, and I think it was like 6 years ago that he just said, listen, guys, there is a problem on the web. We have so much JavaScript. And then nobody did with it anything. I actually did a podcast with him, by the way, if you guys are curious to learn more about the history of this. Nobody did anything with it. So then he came and he was like, okay, I'm going to do something about it. And then he created Qwik. And he is actually also the creator of Angular. So he just switched. But like you saw, Qwik is nothing like Angular in the way of working. So yeah. Anybody else? Yes, you with the red t-shirt. You guys are a gang.
My name is Niels.
Yes.
What happens when the moment fails to load due to a network error but then resolved or handle faults like that?
Good question. So the question is, let's say you're in a button and you're trying to download some JavaScript and it fails. What does it do? So just like we handled today network requests, what do we do with them? We retry. And if it fails, we're going to show some kind of error, or you can do an error boundary, if you will. So yeah, that's how I would handle them. So Qwik does retry, actually. But if you want to, let's say, show something nice to the user that something went wrong, just like you handle any network request, you could do that. I think there is also some stuff that Qwik is actually trying to optimize in there. Maybe like some kind of optimistic UI, you could say. Just like React, if you're using suspense, you can do a fallback and then show something different. So you probably could do some kind of optimization there. But for that, I would recommend to check the docs and see what is their recommendation. Yes?
Is it opt-in? Like, can I take a project and start implementing Qwik on one component, or do I need to switch the whole project?
So the question is, if I have a React project, for example,
Existing code base,
yeah,
I need to like, try this out.
and you just want to try out Qwik on your React project.
Like one component.
Yeah. So I think you can do that, just like I did with the Qwikify. You could probably just import it, install it, and then just go ahead and take a component in React and try to see how it works with the Qwikify. Yeah, it's possible. Anybody else? I took the red team, so I'm going to take with the black. Next one. Yes, you there in the back.
Mahendra. So basically, I see a trend now in the front-end framework.
Right.
So if I talk about the 2000 era, then we are server-rich. That means server-side technology like JSP, ASP, those kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the person is server-side.
Mm-hmm.
Then the era comes from the which is a rich internet application when everything goes to the client side and for the better user experience.
Mm-hmm.
Now it seems like all the framework going back to the server side with the HTMX and this Qwik and
Yeah.
related Next.js, everything is moving to server side.
Mm-hmm.
So how you feel it? Because when I see this loading time, I also see the HTMX hypermedia concept, which is also saying now that the JavaScript is being in a wrong way.
Yeah.
Every element should directly go to the server and replace with the HTML content, not a JavaScript.
Mm-hmm.
Why the transit in the JavaScript? Why not the output itself as a HTML, plain HTML, as a string?
Yeah, so first of all, I think you have observability and also a question. So the observation is that we did kind of a full circle. We were saying, let's render everything on the client, right? Let's do that. That's a great solution. Well, turns out it's not that great because we're missing for example, SEO optimization. So if you want to go on Google and search your website, it's not possible. So then we do server-side rendering. And then we also say it's faster. But then we still have the hydration problem. So then you're kind of conflicting yourself, okay, which way should I go maybe? And then also in one side, you're saying there is this HTMX framework, for example, that came out, which I'm not that familiar with. But I did see a
Framework basically is the hypermedia concept of HTML.
hypermedia concept of it's like building applications without JavaScript with HTML.
With HTML, just like
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm skeptical, but you know, what I would say basically is, and my recommendation to everybody who's getting started and familiar with new frameworks, don't follow the hype. Just have a look. Go download the project. Try to install it on whatever project existing that you have. For example, this guy gave a good idea on a React project, and just like play with it, see what problem does it solve you for the business. Does it start to actually load things faster for me? And for example, if you're an e-commerce website and you see performance gains, just go ahead and use that. And Qwik has all kind of things, by the way. It's not only Qwik. It's also I think they could call it Playtown. So for example, we have all our third libraries that we load on the page. For example, Facebook Analytics or Google Analytics, all the analytics stuff. You could twist that and let it load by a service worker on the side. And then basically, your website will still load fast, right? But then the other stuff that it needs for the analytics, it will do that on a service worker on the backstage, and the user doesn't even care about these things. So just gave another thing, but in general, to your question, I would say if you're confused with this whole, where to go, what's happening, just give it a try and see if it solves you really a business problem. Because we as developers like to think and go for the most shiny thing, but there's business people which we need to justify those things too, and it has to really save us some money to actually have it working. And in this case, I think it does. So try it out, see if it solves it, and don't follow the biggest Twitter thread. That's what I'm going to do next. It's actually just check if it actually solves the problem for me. If you want to play with it on your side project, that's another aspect to it. So I hope it kind of gives you an idea and you're not that confused anymore. But if you're still, let's talk after the talk and we can, have a more in-depth discussion. Right? So anybody else? Bretty.
My name is Emil.
Emil, nice to meet you.
Question, does the opt-in also work with other frameworks than React?
The opt-in, yeah, it actually works with Angular. The guy who created Angular did this thing. Okay. But, and I think also you could do it with Vue, but I didn't see any examples yet. Svelte should work because it's kind of JSX, so maybe. But I know for sure Angular React.
And are there any pitfalls for writing your code? Because it divides stuff in very small chunks.
It's like a wrapper or... Sorry, you mean about if there's any pitfalls in terms of how, because it divides your code?
Structure your code, because it divides it up in very small pieces. But, well, one function depends on another function, depends on another function.
Let's have a look. Will it matter? Oops. Let me see. So in terms of how you write your code, it's not that different than what you're used to today. You still can pass the props the way you would want to pass them. You're still doing on-click events how you would want to. The only difference...
I mean more in the, for the serialization part where Qwik determines which chunks to allocate to which function.
But it does it automatically for you, so you don't really interact with it or you don't structure it in your code. So it doesn't really affect your workflow, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah, it was more that maybe you have to add an extra step in your thoughts, like, hey,
Just this $sign.
yeah, okay.
That's the only thing, literally. If to get this performance gains, all you have to start thinking about in your mindset is that I need to start putting $signs in places where it's supposed to be. And where am I supposed to do that? Mostly functions. And there is also some kind of, I guess, best practices from Qwik in their documentation on how you want to handle, for example, events. So let's say use scroll, for example. How do you do that lazy loaded? So Qwik has some kind of basic ideas on how you should use those hooks. The documentation will explain you. And it does take some time to actually, in your mind, that's the adjustment, yeah. So in your workflow, when you're working with Qwik, that's something that I noticed when I did, for example, some kind of project in React that I tried to migrate to Qwik. This kind of, also in TypeScript, how do I pass a prop with type of Qwik? Because on function, click, for example, that you want to pass to an input, it's not that you're passing a normal function. It's a quickie function. So you need to find which function, the definition in the type of Qwik to use in order to kind of pass those props. So these are the tricky things that you're going to stumble upon when you're starting to work with Qwik, is to think about the types if you're working with TypeScript, and then also those $signs is where do I put them in order to get the benefit of Qwik. Because if I could also define a component without those $signs, but then I'm losing the power that it can give me. So yeah, good question, and you will really see it when you start working with it and trying on it in small projects. Anybody else? This side? Yes. I did this side a lot, sorry. I missed you guys. Sorry, how does it work to fetch data from a third party? So let's say we have some kind of to-do list, and then I need to fetch a to-do list from an API, right? So how does it work? I mean, there is not really a difference, honestly. It's just how you're used to these days. Just call an API, and it will do the work behind the scenes. You don't really have to care about what's happening behind the scenes. So the workflow in that sense doesn't change. Anybody else from this side? No, this side is quiet. Wake up. This side. Red team, blue team. Yes.
Nowadays, we are using mobile with like offline mode. So after a certain time, they use offline so that it still work after the first load. And then in your quick way, how is behavior? Now for every clicks or something, it again load from Java.
So let's say we have a React application. If you're going offline and you're not using PWA, what do you expect that will happen? That the things will stop working. So like in a way, you know, it's basically the same, I would say. So in that way, so if you're going offline and you're not caching those kind of, you know, whatever you need to have on your application, things will not work as properly as you would expect to. So it's basically, I guess, the same thing. In a way, it doesn't change really the functionality there. Yes?
Follow-up to that though is that in React you'd get like your entire bundle, and so if you go offline, then all of your code would be there.
That's true.
In Qwik, is there a way to say like eager load everything that's remaining because I want to go offline now, like be fully available?
That's interesting. So the question is, let's say the user, but how would you distinguish if a user is going to go offline? How are you going to, I'm about to go offline.
Whether you'd be able to have the option.
To eager load everything?
Yeah.
But if you want to rig, it's a bit of a kind of controversial question in this sense if you're using Qwik, right? Because if you're using Qwik, what's the power that you want to get is that you have everything lazy loaded. When you need it, you get it. So if you're going to say, listen, eager load everything, you're kind of going against the problem you're solving. So whether there is an option in their API to do so, I didn't know, I didn't try. Maybe there is, but I would say if you're using Qwik, you probably don't want to do that because you're basically losing the power of what Qwik does for you. So yeah, it's a bit controversial question in that sense.
But we want to make PWAs.
You want to make PWAs, so you can try to. But I mean, what PWA gives us, as far as I know, is just your app works offline. But then, obviously, it's not going to work fully if your old JavaScript is not there. So I didn't try, honestly. I didn't try it yet. So maybe there is a solution, and I just don't know about it yet. Yes?
My question is about, you mentioned React working with Qwik.
Yeah?
But I'm wondering, the whole point of Qwik is to replace the initial load that comes with React. And for example, if we are doing a project with React and components from Qwik, then we are still almost bringing the same kind of JavaScript, a lot of JavaScript along with it. Is there a possibility that at some point with bigger applications, Qwik might almost be the same as React, because there will be a lot of things that will be reused, because we have a lot of code in React applications, Vue applications, Angular applications that is supposed to be reused again and again. The concept of components is there like that. So can there be a point where, for example, I'm talking about store that has to be there. So there might be a lot of code that has to be preloaded. And is it possible that at some point the case of Qwik might be a failure? Just out of curiosity.
I'm trying to understand the question. So you're saying that there is, for example, a React application which has also Qwik components in it?
Yeah. So isn't it the same thing as React?
So I would say it's not really the same because you're still going to have the lazy loading of those components. And obviously, the pros and cons of having a React project and a Qwik project together is that you're not going to have this lazy loading on everything, unless you're going to start modifying all your components and migrating them. So yes, in the beginning, you're not going to get the whole full benefit that you get when using Qwik right away, everything. But as you go and migrate about it and try to slowly, transition your components, you're going to start to see the gains. So actually, I wouldn't recommend to go on it on a full scale, but it's a starting point as well. So yeah, it's a good question to check once you're going to actually start working on it, what kind of things you can really transform from the beginning to the Qwik way of doing it. And then the rest of it, the small chunks, to slowly start to building them towards moving away to it. So yeah, it's I guess a progress that you will have to do with the project that you're going to migrate to. Cool. All right. Let me see if we still have time. 2:30. It's 3:07. So I guess I can take another question if anybody wants to ask anything. All right, there are still eager people asking. So we're going to take one more question, and then I'm going to close it off. So yes, yellow team.
Did you ever test it with throttled connection speed, for instance? Like, because this is where I would assume to see big differences in performance with Qwik if you compare it to Next.
So could you maybe explain to me the concept that you're mentioning about throttling?
Sorry. Or just lower internet speeds. I think in the DevTools you can throttle your connection to like a 3G or like even slower speeds.
Yeah.
I think this is where you could see like really good.
I mean, we could try it. Let's do a live show trying to test Qwik. So we have this clock that is loading to us once we really need it. And if I'm going to do a slow, that's what you meant, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh. No, I don't. Do we want to disable the cache? Wait, so guys, did you see what happened? That's actually really interesting. So I'm going to do the slow thingy again. So I still see the clock. It's just not really functional. But it actually then becomes workable. So it's kind of cool, right? I mean, it does it outside the box and it didn't really do anything. So here's your answer. It works, but it's lagging.
But isn't a kind of trade-off that initially load and later application perform well, rather than initially load fast but later performing lagging?
Yeah, but then it's gonna really happen just once.
You get good experience initially, but later not good experience. And in another case, you get initially bad experience, but later very good experience.
So yeah, it's so it's a
The first time, but the user customer who already used it, he wants overall experience, not just
I think you want to get you basically if we go back to the presentation and about Google, the research that they did, right? Never mind, I don't have to go through it. You remember it. People will leave your page if you're an e-commerce website and they see this thing loads up more than 2 seconds. They're more likely to leave your page. I think from a business perspective, you can really justify this kind of experience. You're going to say, listen, our customers are going to get the page right away when they load this thing. So if later things, maybe you have a slow internet and they're lagging a little bit, they're still going to see the component. They could still kind of interact with it. I guess that's a trade-off I'm willing to take as a business owner. My page still speeds up really fast, and you can still see things. It's the pros and cons that you have to, I guess, think about when you're migrating to this thing.
You can load when the connections are.
They select the product,
What?
checkout. During the checkout, our application is slow, not able to pay. And I don't think the web commerce applications like it. Customer selected and put in the card and while paying.
So again, you could do optimizations. I'm pretty sure that Qwik people that build this kind of framework, they have all solutions for all kind of networking stuff, and they probably thought the whole process through. So really, if you want to dive into this topic of network requests and caching things and make them workable, you have something to want to say?
I'm checking the docs, and you can load stuff when the connection is idle. So that's also that.
Thanks for checking the docs for me. Anybody else wants to ask any questions? Please, let's do it then after this. So thank you very much for having me and being here.